Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on season 2 of the Higher Ground podcast. We're happy you're here with us today. We've got some great guests lined up this season, different leaders from organizations that I've worked in or around, folks that I've worked with in the past, and my current peers that I'm working with today. We've got mentees that are going to be joining us that are asking advice from all different levels of their career journey, whether it's looking for a job or a promotion. We're here to help. Sticky situations are our specialty. Asking questions about the interview process and getting promoted and the like are very important to us in this podcast. I just want to reiterate that the views expressed are my own, as well as the guests represent their personal opinions and do not represent the views of the companies that they're working for, the ones we might reference as part of our conversation. Thanks so much for joining, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today on the Higher Ground podcast. I've got a wonderful guest for your enjoyment and education today. With me is Sri G. Sri and I worked PayPal together a few years ago, and I'm not going to try to give him, I'm not going to try to represent your background. I think it's probably best if you do, but maybe we start off with the name. Like we can jump right into that if you like. I've only ever known you as Sri G, but then there was Sri S. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we both have, like the other Sri and I, we both have longer names than this Sri. So my full name is Sri Krishna Gopalakrishnan. I think when I came to the US the first time, it's obviously a difficult name to pronounce, so I went by Sri. But most Indian names start with Sri. It was not uncommon to find two Sris at a minimum of two Sris at eBay when the other Sri and I used to work. And the coming of my name of Sri G, it was a meeting that both the Sris were there in the meeting. And every time somebody said Sri, both of us would look up.
You're like, yeah, sure.
And this went on for a few minutes. And then eventually there was another Indian sitting in the room who basically said, hey, the next time, you go by Sri G. And then the three of us looked at each other and chuckled because even though G stands for a short of my last name, which is Gopalakrishnan, in the Indian context, G, when a name ends with G, it's actually out of respect. So Gandhi G, for example, you never call Mahatma, Gandhi as Gandhi. It's always Gandhi G, right?
Oh,
so
interesting.
It's out of respect.
Interesting. Yeah, there was.
But then it just stuck. The name stuck, like you said, and it went onto my badge, went to my email, went to my credit card.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's terrific. No, thank you for sharing. You want to just give us a little thumbnail sketch of your career, how things have been going over the last couple of years?
I can, yes, for sure. I've officially retired from the corporate world, and I run a startup nonprofit at this time. My career started almost 25 years ago. I graduated out of college in 99, my undergrad in mechanical engineering. And at that time, it was fairly common to, be of any discipline in a engineering discipline, but you'd end up actually likelihood of having a software job was very, very highly likely. And so my first job out of college was at a company called Infosys, and I worked there for a few years as a software programmer. I came to the US, and then I said, okay, I got to work here at a US company. And of all the companies, of all the interviews, that was the first time I actually did some serious interviewing. And I joined eBay as a programmer, as a software engineer. And I spent all my adult life, I would say, between eBay and PayPal. They were the same company. And I worked in eBay till 2015, right around the time eBay and PayPal officially split. And I was probably the last employee to officially move over between eBay and PayPal before they cut off. So I actually moved over on the last day of the cutoff, where all the systems got separated, Workday and and I worked in PayPal from 2015 till I retired, which is 2022.
And it's quite a long run for two companies. I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say this, but it's just the truth about my career. It's kind of been a lot of movement, we'll say,
Yeah,
but in my own personal defense, like a lot of the companies that I worked for in the past were either consumed by other companies. Like IBM bought three of the former companies I worked for, and I've
yeah.
never worked for IBM. So there's that, but that's pretty amazing.
If you'd
And
asked me
obviously you
20
must have
years
been
ago, yeah,
going.
sorry. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, would I've imagined myself working in one company for this long? I would have said, heck no. But I was
Yeah.
just very fortunate to get a depth and breadth of experience between
Mm,
eBay as a commerce company and PayPal as a payments company.
mm.
So that, in hindsight, I think I feel I'm just quite blessed to have had this diverse experience across these two companies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's unusual to be for so long, but it's also speaks to volumes to your, the kind of work you've done and the relationships you've established, and obviously enjoyed the work, right? So from that perspective, that's good. Um, Here's some basically just get to know you kind of questions. There, this or that, right? So, um, let's see, where should we start? Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Best answer on that one. Okay.
I have a dog
New
at
York.
home, so
Oh, what
it's
kind
an
of
easy
dog do you
answer
have?
for me.
It's an
I
easy
have
answer.
a
Yeah.
Jack Russell, and she's a mix between Jack Russell and a New York Squire. So she's a medium-sized dog, not too big,
Nice.
25 pounds. So she's very cute.
Great. Good size. That's good. Yeah, I'm currently pugless myself. I at some point
Okay,
intend to be with pug at some point in the future.
okay.
Let's see. So, beer or wine?
It used to be beer, but now it's probably wine. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah, when I was young, a lot of beer.
a lot of beer. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I've never shaken the beer habit. Frankly, I still love my beer, but I'm very much I like both. That's part of
Yeah.
why I had to go lose some weight because it's not always conducive, right? This is a New York question, so I'm sure
hmm
I know you've been to our fair city more than once. Pizza or bagels?
I will say probably pizza. Yeah, pizza.
Pizza. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer there for the record.
There is no wrong answer. Yes, both are good.
Unless you're from Chicago and you said Chicago pizza, then we would have a whole nother problem. Let's see. And then, this is kind of my cheesy segue, but I generally ask like in-person interviewing or virtual.
I'm actually very comfortable with both. In fact, right now you have a large there's a large monitor right in front of me, so it's almost like
Interesting.
life size. So
Oh,
I feel like you're sitting right in front of me.
that's good right here. Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah, I think what this since COVID, frankly, this ability to now have the connectivity and the ability to have that kind of real time
yeah,
conversation has made it much easier for candidates that are not local. I think
correct.
there's a positive there, especially when they consider the talent pool is just so incredibly wide, and so much of there's such a mix of the remote,
Yeah.
and in person work. No, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Um, so tell me if you could the move from like Infosys programmer right
hmm
to eBay. I know there was also a move to the United States. Like
hmm
was that an easy decision to make to come to the US? Was it and then how did the experience go from getting on board at eBay?
Yeah. So it's my generation. It was fairly normal at that time, where you kids graduate out of college, they start a job in the software services industry. I was just starting to pick up, and
Mm,
and you come in. You usually work with customers and clients who are not in India but outside of India. In fact, my first customer and client was in Germany, and then we had
mm,
some in the US. And then at some point in time, they said, okay, you have to come work closer with where your customers are. So you come in here on a visa, and then you come here, and then suddenly the world just expands in front of your eyes. You get to see all the different things you've never been exposed to.
sure.
Um, and to almost every immigrant, the story is the same. It's the American dream, which is very, very real.
Mm,
Um, and I was very impressed with what I saw and what could be here. and I realized, okay, this is where you have to live and you have to be. So somewhere in the early 2000s, I did make a decision to move. I said I should find a job that's more permanent here, because when you're in a consultant or a consulting role, you tend to actually move. And I wanted to, just get comfortable in one location, physical location.
Sure, sure.
I was just married, so my wife and I both decided that we should actually find jobs here. And that was my first entry into a US company, which was at eBay.
Okay.
And I started at eBay as basically an entry level software engineer. Even though I had a few years of experience, but when you come from consulting to back to a product company, and at that time eBay was a very highly regarded company in its technical skills, and so yeah, I had to start from scratch at eBay. But it's probably one of the best things that happened, because it started to just get my fundamentals right. Right. I was fortunate to be in a team where your manager cares about you, invests in you. You have just wonderful teammates around you to learn from, and you have the access to extremely amazing talent around you.
Did you know that going into eBay that that was their, that they brought this, they offered this, or you looked at a couple of companies and said, I like this one, this one, this one, and you got lucky?
Oh, no, not at all. Actually, I'd say, see, this was in my early 20s. So there's just, like I said, right, you just go with the flow. In fact, I remember having interviewed a lot of companies, and I failed in a lot of the interviews. I didn't make it even through the first round. And, and by the time eBay came through, I had a few offers, and eBay was the lowest paying company at that time. My offer was the lowest, but eBay had the highest reputation, meaning as a company for an engineer to start at. And so I took that bet. I took that leap of faith and say, okay, let's take this role, because while on the surface it looks like it's not paying as much as I would have hoped to. It was definitely still more than what I was getting at Infosys, so that's a different story. And when you're early on in your career, money plays such an important role in these decisions, right? Yeah. And there was somebody who advised me to say, hey, it's a no-brainer, go join eBay. And that kind of, tipped it over for me and said, okay, I should join eBay.
Like a mentor or a friend or someone who's just like you?
It's actually my brother's classmate, who happened to be here in the US. So he's 4 years older than I am, was in a job himself. And he basically said, hey, this is like, don't even think twice. It's a great company. Just go and join.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the marginal difference at your entry level versus where the potential is astronomical, right? And I think that's a great lesson for candidates who are like, so much of this is about finding the company that aligns with your values, that aligns with your goals, and that has that opportunity for growth. And it's hard to tell, but your network obviously steered you. I don't know the past tense of
steered me. Yes.
Steered you in the right direction. Yeah. Forgot the word for a moment. Yes. Okay. No, that's great. And then you were at eBay for a while, and then it wasn't like you exactly joined PayPal. They kind of brought you like as the split happened. If you could share just a little bit about that. That was a unique situation for me. I joined PayPal, and I had only heard about, the company splitting in parts. What was that experience like?
Yeah. So, before I get to that experience, I'll just tell you about the progression itself. In fact,
sure, of course.
Yeah. So I joined as an entry level engineer, and I think a year or two, I was asked if I was interested to become a manager of an engineering team, and at that time, in fact, I had no interest to manage a team.
Said and then every later tech on, manager ever, right?
Yes. And then later on, I was told basically you're not being asked. You're actually, it's probably we want you to become the manager of this team. Yes. So there was a position open, and for some reason, my manager thought I was probably the right candidate for that role. And it went on from being the engineer on the team to manage the team to then manage a few functions, more engineering functions. Eventually, I was leading all of what was trust and safety at eBay. And then And then I transitioned to a different role. So I moved from applications to a platform role within eBay. And I spent 3 years on the platform side of things at eBay before that transition happened. And my move to PayPal also was very accidental. I had no interest to move to PayPal. I was reporting then to the CTO at eBay, and Sri, Sri Shivananda, the other Sri, and he and I have known each other for a very long time. He approached me, in fact, during, I think it was the Memorial Day weekend. That's the one in May, right? Yeah. So the holiday in May.
Too. Yeah, you think I would know this?
Not
yes,
Labor Day, so the Memorial Day.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Labor's the end of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, he made a pitch asking me to join PayPal and solve an extremely difficult problem that PayPal hasn't solved before in the last 10 years, and has failed several times to solve it. And so that's what got me very intrigued, and I said, okay, let me take that. And fortunately for me, it was also a very good career decision in moving over. And I did many roles actually when I was at PayPal, and my last role was I was running data infrastructure, data services, the AIML platform.
Yeah, that's where we worked closely together. I was part of the governance team, and we were constantly in this dance of, I want more. Can you give us more? And you're balancing the ask amongst one of many customers, right? And I honestly have to say, working with the team at PayPal was awesome. It was a really, really good experience. I learned a ton. I very much enjoyed the experience. I definitely found it to be a terrific experience. So I'm curious about a number of things. One, it's a big shift for a manager to go from an IC, right, to go from individual contributor to a manager role, and then it becomes complicated again when you become a manager of managers, right? Are there any lessons or any thoughts you might want to share on those two different transitions?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say for me, the IC to a manager was a very interesting experience. I have I still remember lots of stories and incidents, which now in hindsight, I'd say, why did I do what I did back in those days, right? But I realized that the best experience comes from your own personal experience. The best lessons learned comes from the lessons and the battles and the scars that you have on yourself, right? And unless you are in that situation, it's one thing where you read, it's another thing where you hear from mentors and managers and coaches, but then just being in the thick of things and actually experiencing it and then reflecting on it, and then to say if this is right or wrong was the best thing that that could have happened. And so the transition was not very difficult, but I'd say for me, if I had to pick one particular or one thing that mattered the most in making this transition easy and actually really good, is my manager, the person who I reported to. His name also is Tom Nomal. He played a very, very important role in I'd say coaching me and shaping my views and behaviors as a manager. And I sincerely appreciate the amount of effort and time and he would take. And early on, my skills that I've actually acquired in being a good manager was, I'd say, I'd attribute mostly as a reflection of the things I learned from him. And and this is what I would say to most people who aspire to be in the leadership role, is that some of us obviously have just inbuilt capabilities that we grow with, and we are lucky. But for most of us, these are acquired skills, right? There's some, of course, that comes with your personality, but a lot of the EQ skills, for example, is what you see around you and how you react, how you observe. And so you want to be in a situation where you have that opportunity to observe and learn. And if you're not in that situation where you can't observe, right, so your learning is also impacted. And Tom gave me that platform where I could observe and learn. right? Model my own behavior around people I worked with. And when and he would point, and the way he coached me is how I started coaching my team, or people who'd reach out to me even later in my career, right? So of course then you put in your own fingerprints on it,
Yeah,
and
of
your
course.
style starts to form, but it's definitely guided by something that you've observed and learned. So
Love that.
he was my manager for 4 years, fairly early on in my career, and that's a long period of time to be very strongly influenced, right? And so that was somewhat fortunate having that experience.
I'm smiling there for a number of reasons. One is tech organizations in particular love to reorganize. So the chance of you having the same manager for a stretch like 4 years, it's that must have been a wonderful gift, right? Because a lot of times your managers will change. Were there any specific like 2 or 3 bullet points or top items you would say that you would give it as a tip to an to a young manager or someone not age wise but experientially that would be like try these 3 things and you'll be successful, right?
Yeah, the first and foremost thing I remember Tom telling me is, to be a manager, you need to have a team, right? Don't go for a title. It's just that, and you represent the team, right? You don't represent yourself. You're not a manager. You're a manager of what? Of your team, of people. And it's not a box on a PowerPoint, right? It's real people on the ground. And you've got to care about them. You've got to care about their career. You've got to care about what they want, how to make them better, right? How to give them opportunities. How do you, and most people forget that, especially when you go from an IC to a manager, your job you think is, hey, I have to deliver code, I have to deliver projects, I have to meet milestones, I have to do things well.
Sure.
You do all of that by taking care of your team.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's not one or the other.
Sure.
Right. And I realized that, and as I grew in my career and I started mentoring and coaching people, I realized that actually is quite a gap. Most people don't understand that. And that because people are not told as they transition, you're still evaluated by your technical skill sets that you have as an engineering manager, as an engineer. And we value you for that, but you've got to care for your team and you've got to grow that team. And grow is not grow in size, not grow in number, but grow in skills, grow in knowledge. Because and everything else that you will see is an outcome of that. Great quality code, good timely delivery, good communication, good collaboration. All of that is just the outcome or that you see based on the investment you put in coaching and growing your team.
That's great. No, thank you. I think someone had early on explained to me a similar ethos and principles that you are successful through your team, right? And
exactly,
your team is a reflection of you and how well you execute. And I've always held that very close because I think they are my success. They get the credit, I get the blame, right? And I think that's just, if something went wrong, it's my decision, right? And that's so I appreciate that perspective. Tell me, if you would, a little bit. I know we talked about interviewing. I think you mentioned you've done like over 1,000 interviews. That's an enormous number. What would you say to, as you started your career, like how did your perspective on interviewing change from when you started to where you are today?
There were many instances during my entire career about just this concept of interviewing, and I started to form very strong opinions about what is good versus what is not good. In fact, so the very first, my very first experience as now being on the other side, which is I am being interviewed, somebody's interviewing me. Like I said, there was just one of those interviews I've done in my life, or one role, which is when I was interviewing when I was leaving Infosys and joined eBay. So that time I took about 25, 30 interviews. And eBay was a great interview. I really liked my conversation with everyone. They pushed me and they asked me questions that were tough. But the one that the funny one that still stands out in my memory was
Yeah.
it was a remote interview, so not in person. It was a telephonic interview. It was for an hour in the evening, somewhere between 6 and 7 in the evening, and it was extremely textbookish. It felt like somebody was opening a book based on Java and asking me, in sections to kind of memorize and read it back. And within like 10 minutes in the interview, I just basically I didn't know the answers to any of those textbookish questions.
Sure.
And that went on and on and on. I thought this person would give up on me in the first 15 minutes, but he had about 25 questions to ask me. And literally about 20 of the 25, my answer was, I don't know.
Okay.
But he didn't give up on me. He finished the whole set of
Yeah.
allotted time and questions, and maybe even more. And I was really hoping that he just like, please excuse me. I don't think I'm going to pass this interview.
Yeah. Let me go. Let me go.
Correct. Yeah. So that was on the other hand. But my very first impression of actually wanting to conduct great interviews, such that I leave behind an impression, the person who is being interviewed says, hey, actually, this was a great interview and this guy knows what he's talking about, right? Was we were going through a transformation at eBay, I think early 2010, before 2010, somewhere around that time frame. We had an executive who joined us from Microsoft. And so our CTO was he started bringing in people from Microsoft, executives from Microsoft. And that time, Microsoft was very highly technical folks, very competent folks. And so this guy joined, his name is Ken Moss, and he's actually the inventor of pivot tables back in Microsoft. Yeah.
No way. I'd like to shake that man's hand. I love that. That's amazing.
It's pretty cool, actually. It's one of the things he says. But the very first thing he came in, he looked at all talent, and the first thing he questioned was like, tell me about how you guys make a decision, a hire decision. And when he realized like it's just so totally random, he basically put an end to every hire decision. He said, whether you hire an entry-level engineer, an RCG, or hire a VP, I make the final decision, because it looks like you guys don't know how to interview.
No
and
kidding.
I started observing what kind of questions does he ask. What does he actually ask? Why does he say? So, for example, most at that time, most hire decisions were made without any write-up. For example,
Yeah.
Right? It was very common to say, okay, let me just talk to this guy, get some input, and that's it. And you make a decision. And then if you had to come back and ask, okay, what happened? You would just botch it around, right?
Yeah, I liked him. He was a good guy. She was a great person. Like, or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
What do you mean good guy? Exactly, right?
How do you define good guy?
How do you define good guy? So that was my first eye opener to say, okay, there is some structure to conducting meaningful interviews and making a good, meaningful decision, right? The point he emphasized was that hiring is not an important job. It is the most important job. When you hire for a company, you're not hiring for a skill, you're not hiring for a team, you're not hiring for a project, you're hiring for the company, for the future, for a person who's going to come in and help elevate the company to the next level, whether they are an entry-level candidate or they're a vice president or an executive level. So it's important to make a good decision. And there's a methodology in making that good decision. So that was my first awareness to the methodology, right? And the more and more I started saying, okay, I started obsessing around that methodology. In fact, I was, my biggest inspiration of hiring, this was in like early 2000s, was actually Google. The process that Google was following and the way they would actually plan for doing interviews before the candidate even comes in,
even shows up
and starts to talk, right? And that to me also was very, very powerful, because I felt actually it makes so much logical sense. How can you walk into an interview without any prep? How can you walk into an interview, meaning I'm talking about the interviewer, not the interviewee.
Right.
Right?
What question are you going to ask every time? What questions? Where do you vary things? What do you ask next? Like, what do we want out of this? Is it a culture check? Is it a technical
Yeah.
check? What do we? Yeah.
And that's when I realized the importance of being prepared. And it's not just as an interview, even for this interview that you and I are having. I was glad that you actually wrote those questions. I went through it. I sat down and prepared for it, right? So preparation as an attribute, it doesn't matter where you apply, but it's an important attribute because that's how you show up.
Yes.
You show up on time. You show up ahead of time to show that you value that person, right? So that's meaningful in an interview too, right? I would observe this people coming late, walking into interview room, keeping the candidate waiting, and I said there's no excuses to that. So I started forming very strong opinions, and the more and more I read about, there was a book by Laszlo Bock from Google. He was the VP of Human Resources at Google from the early days, I think, till like the first 10 years. Just amazing insights into how should you select people to your company.
Interesting.
And so these things played a big role in just shaping my philosophy around interviewing. And
one of the common techniques is to go to like a question bank, right? We're going to go down like a population of, again, depending on the flavor of interview. Is that something you instituted? Is that something that the downside of the question bank is then people leave and then they like, oh, okay, PayPal asks these questions, right? Like that's the sort of, countering that can be tricky.
Yeah. So see, the thing is, it's not about the question bank itself. It's like, what do you want out of this interview? And I have this interesting analogy, and I'll share this anyway, and I hope I don't offend anyone who's watching this video, right? But I do say that interviewing, a traditional interviewing, is like an Indian arranged marriage in the Indian culture. Okay. And I don't know if you know anything about it, but I'll tell you how the arranged, and most Indians would know it, right?
Okay.
It's a very interesting concept. Is that now in my generation, back in the days, it was very common that you actually don't get married to a girl you like. You get married to a girl that your parents like. All right, and that terminology is called arranged marriage. And the process starts with both the boys and girls' horoscope being shared to somebody in the community who do a matchmaking. So that's like, and the equivalent to that in the interviewing is that you have somebody from TA, talent acquisition, getting resumes and looking which resume is good based on some keywords. That's kind of what it is. All right. And then that happens. And then the two families decide, okay, there's probably a scope out here. Why don't we come in, meet together? And so usually the boy's family, the father, the mother, the groom, and the groom's whatever brother or sister, whoever, they all come in to the girl's side of the family. They are invited home for a coffee. They sit down. Okay, walk in, you're welcome to sit down, and usually the girl brings the coffee. Okay, this is very typical. It's just so stereotypical. Brings in the coffee, right? So this reminds me that, okay, you walk in, somebody picks you up from the lobby and takes you to the
interview room, right?
Brings you to the interview room, right? Now what happens, by then, the girl and the boy, they've already seen a picture of each other. They've seen their resumes without any content. They've just seen a picture. It's usually, a passport size picture. And you've already started to form an opinion based on a picture. All right?
Can't avoid it. We're humans.
Right? Yeah, and then you don't just submit a picture. The parents choose which picture to be submitted because they want to make sure you look the best, because they know that's how decisions are made. You walk in, the very first 5 minutes, right? You're saying one or two words. Mostly the parents are talking the very first 5 minutes. Then the parents say, why don't we let the kids actually go to the next room and have a conversation, right? And it's very stereotypical. This is what happens during an arranged marriage. So the boy and the girl go to a room, which is the interview room, and usually the guy starts to ask the question, right? Within the first 5 minutes of the conversation, your decision is made. The next 55 minutes is you're validating that decision, right? And for all practical reasons, somebody else makes a decision on your behalf, which is your parents, and you live with the decision for the rest of your life. And you now take it back and put this in the concept of interviewing. It's exactly the same thing, right? You go in, you put your resume in, you come in there are some bunch of 5 guys who are asking something. All these 5 guys, whether it's 1 or 5, within the first 5 minutes, most likely whatever you've said either impresses them or doesn't impress them. And then they're skirting around this and trying to get to know you better. There's no objective way of determining whether you are the right candidate or not. Right? And if the hiring manager tends to like you better than the others, he's trying to convince everybody else why you are the right best fit, in spite of the feedback the others give, whether it's objective or subjective.
I love the analogy. I do. I'm not having not having that in my background. I do genuinely appreciate the analogy because it's perfect. From the way you described it, like it makes a lot of sense. And I think like after those first few minutes, you're deciding, am I convincing myself that this person, the likelihood of you changing your mind is low. Are you going to try to talk yourself into changing your mind or out of changing your mind, right? And that's where the frameworks for interviewing and a lot of the tools we can provide interviewers for consistency and objectivity can really help.
Yeah, especially early on in your career, you don't have any functional skills, right? Barely any functional skills. Somewhere in between your career, you build all your functional skills. And then later on in your career at an executive role, of course, you have functional skills, right? But then in addition to your functional skills, you need to have leadership skills and organizational skills and operational skills and leadership skills, right? In between, in the middle level of, like, let's say you have about 5 years experience to about 20 years, you should be tested on your functional skills, but there's lots of other behavioral skills that you need to be tested, right? And most behaviorals, and of course, functional skills depends on which kind of a function. It's easier to test. So I'm an engineer. I need to know whether you know A, B, and C. So I can put together A, B, and C, or variations of A, B, and C, and see how you approach that A, B, and C. Versus the behavioral skill is, it gets extremely muddy, extremely subjective. So how do you objectify those questions or around the responses for a behavioral question, right? And make an assessment. And that's where I found that it's the grayest area.
Yeah. Can you give our listeners an example of what a behavioral question or two might be like?
So I'll give you an example. What is the definition of good collaboration? I'll ask you.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? Now, collaboration is such a loaded word. What does collaboration really mean? Does it mean I sit with you and we pair program if I'm an engineer? Does it mean I learn something from somebody and I share it with you? Does it mean that, hey, you're going through a tough time, I come and give you a shoulder to cry? Does it mean, I share everything I'm doing, I come and share it with you? Like, what does it really mean? And that context is very different for at a different time. But however, when you've been asked to, see if this person is collaborative. And what's a typical question that gets asked? Give me examples of a time when you saw good collaboration, bad collaboration.
Sure.
Right? But without, so collaboration, think of it as not a visible. It's a invisible word for a visible behavior, which is, if I saw something, I can infer whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
But collaboration by itself is not a behavior.
That's interesting.
It's a pseudo behavior, which is it's a little bit higher level, right?
Yes.
The behavior, like I said, I sit down and I pair program with you. I can see that, right? Sure. And I'm taking feedback. I can see that. That means, you're collaborative. Yes. I don't take good feedback. I don't want your feedback. Then you're not collaborative, right? So collaboration is not the skill. The skill is, so that's what I realized about behavioral interviews. It's so subjective in interpretation. And it is like this Indian arranged marriage. Do you feel good asking them some questions? And do you feel good about it? And you feel good about it, that's a good interview. That's not how interviews must be done.
Yeah. You want to get for that objectivity.
You have to have the objectivity in your questions, right? And in how you quiz that person in the limited time that you have.
Yeah, because that's also part of the problem. You can't have the 3-hour conversation, right? Just time doesn't permit.
Yeah.
So going with your analogy, do you ask the like the behavioral type questions as it's sort of an open ended? Tell me about your experience collaborating, or do you ask for the specific instance, or you do the definition? There's probably a couple of different ways you can tackle those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Do
I
you have some
usually
thoughts around?
I start with an open-ended, tell me more about something. I don't say,
Sure.
give me a time where you did A or B. It's actually
Right.
start about with your experience, right? What have you
Mm.
been doing? Okay, let's walk a little bit more deeper into this project, right?
And
And
then
then in that context, tell me what happened. Like, did something go wrong?
got it.
If it went wrong, why do you think it went wrong? What
Yeah.
did you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
after it went wrong? Right? And if our people were to say it actually didn't go wrong, or no, it wasn't, if they are not taking accountability themselves and they're trying to say, that person did this person did that, it starts to give me signals,
Yes.
right? But the moment you take account of actually, what, I shouldn't have done this, and people are scared to come in and say things because they feel they be judged. That to me is a behavior I'd like to assess, because I want people to be honest, right?
Cannot agree more.
Who doesn't want to be?
Cannot agree more.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're going to be scared and actually say, in sharing that, what's the likelihood that you will be scared in sharing something that went wrong in a real life scenario? It's very
In
highly
a real life
likely.
scenario. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you own it? And do you say this is a mistake I made, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
give that chance, the chance for them to step up and say, I
Yeah.
made a mistake. Here's what I did. Here's
Yeah.
what I like to do. Here's what I would do
Yeah.
differently next time, maybe. Or
Yeah. But I would also
no,
say it is on the onus of the interviewer to position the question correctly. And I'll give you some examples.
yeah.
And I realized, especially if you're an executive, let's say you're a director or a VP or whatever that, and you're interviewing somebody who is a little bit less experienced than you are, right? There's already a power struggle in the room. And there's already a power struggle between interviewer and interviewer, right? Interviewer obviously has the higher authority and higher power. Now, suddenly titles make a big difference in this, right? So you can expect a person to be very nervous. And I actually don't care about making them nervous. In fact, for me, it's the other way around. See, this is not a situation where you're testing someone to be a pilot and putting them in a stressful situation, because you need to test them in a stressful situation. It's very, very important. That's an extremely critical skill to test. In this case, right, I don't want to put them in any stress.
Right.
So I expect the interviewer to start setting this context to have them open up. And will they open up? And in spite of that, if they don't, that's your red signals.
Yeah. So if you give them the opportunity to open up, express their opinion or their honest feelings about scenario A, B, or C, right?
Yeah.
If they balk or they don't, you feel like they're hedging or they're not, then that's a signal, a data point that you can say, okay, maybe how hard do you go? Like, do you? Because I've been in interviews where, let's say, I didn't answer the question the best possible way, and I've had interviewers like, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. Is that something that is part of your approach?
I try and do that, and I try and make them feel like, hey, there's nothing like a right or wrong answer. That's not why just because I'm going deeper doesn't mean you're getting it wrong. That's not what it is. I'm more curious how you did this, how you did that. That's it. Right.
So disarming to a point, giving them that ability to be comfortable and explaining to them, this is not a judgment necessarily. I'm trying to understand where your head was in this moment and how you got to this decision versus other potentials.
Correct.
Interesting. No, that's good. Yeah, the soft part of the interview is the hard part. Like, I think, like you said, I really like the way you described it. Like, and when you're early in your career, your functional capabilities are not anywhere near where they will be in the future. So really, especially for the juniors out there, the folks that are just getting started, how you present your appetite for learning, how you present your appetite for handling change and communication skills is incredibly powerful without any skill. That's what I say, skill without any skill, without any hard functional skills, rather. So
and I'd say this: I used to visit Grace Hopper very regularly. I used to go to college internship recruitment very regularly throughout my career, and I found that also just a great experience for me and those candidates. I'll give you this example. You go to Berkeley or you go to Stanford, you got 100 resumes. Most kids, either computer science, electronics, whatever be the discipline, right? you have to, I don't have the time to go through these 100 resumes in detail, right? But what I'm first looking out for is, okay, if I take 10 kids from the same class, same year, they all say they've done the same project. How is one standing out different from the remaining nine, right? That's my first criteria. I don't need to see the name. I don't need to see the picture. I don't even have spoken to you. Are you just trying to differentiate yourself? Because throughout your life, that becomes the key attribute to success. Is you have 10 peers that you work with, right? And if you say you want to grow in your career, what are you doing different that others around you are not doing? How are you showing up? How are you standing out? And it starts from that point on, like your first resume that you wrote the very first time ever in your life, all the way till you end.
That's great. That's great, because I think I've seen enough resumes, probably at some point, my own included, where it's vomit. Like, I've done all these great things, right? It's just, there's a page and I filled it with letters, right? Not necessarily what was special or different or unique about this versus that versus the other. No, I like that. I think that's that's an excellent insight. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. One of the words we hear now, at least not words, but the titles that's very popular now, is product management, right? I too am a product manager, right? And there's a lot of, like, back in the day, so to speak, there were more program managers or project managers and the like, and we're seeing a much greater, particularly in technology, right? The shift over the last, 20 or so years, where the product management title role itself is really become more narrow, more differentiated. What are your thoughts in terms of, like, not the engineering side of the house, but sort of the other parts of product management that might be, besides the technical pieces? Like, what do you find? Let me make the simpler question. What are some of the attributes you find in a good product manager?
Yeah, that's a much more simpler but loaded question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. And I have interviewed a lot of product managers in my career as well. I'd say it just starts with understanding what are you solving for and how you go about understanding that, right? Understanding that core of that problem. And many a times, and I have been guilty of this as well, is that you would put yourself in the customer's shoe and make a decision, right? And if you think of it, product managers basically say, I want A, B, C, D done. Okay, why do you want A done? Who is that A? What problem are you solving with A? How do you validate that's really a customer problem? Is it you interpreting that as a customer problem because you put yourself in their shoe based on your experience? Did you talk to customers? Right? And that's what I would tease out in a product manager interview, is how they go about making decisions. And what I would like to hear, what I'd like to hear, plus what I'd like them to have done, is if you're a product manager, you are constantly surrounding yourself around customers and constantly hearing and seeing what and how they do their job. And without that signal, it's very, very few people in this world can actually understand what needs to be, what's the problem and what should be solved for. It's very easy to be a product manager to say build A, B, C, D, E. And unfortunately, that's what happens. You just see everywhere, right? I need this prioritized, I need that prioritized.
Yeah.
And my question comes down to, how do you say this is what it is? Why are we building this?
Yeah. This is the correct why.
And this is the correct why.
Yeah, I think there's a number of ways to do that. I like your suggestion to immerse yourself, right, with the customers. There's I have only recently gotten involved with, like, active, UX, user experience research and the like, and I find that it's a fascinating line of work, right? To understand, to really deeply, watch the user do the task and understand there and ask those loaded questions. No, thank you. That's insightful. I think the challenge for me as someone who's moving from, see, to me, I've heard somebody recently describe this as it's constant annoyance when something doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I really find that like that's in my nature for many years as a program manager or a data expert or a solution architect, whatever, like all the different hats that I've worn over the years. But I've really landed on this notion of for the product manager, you have to be unsatisfied with
Mm-hmm.
the thing, right? And it's either for
Mm-hmm.
them or for the users or both, ideally both, or especially the users, I would say, you know. But it's this notion of like, yeah, I love Spotify. Spotify
Mm-hmm.
is one of my favorite products. I think it
Mm-hmm.
is close to a greatest product. I
Mm-hmm.
love music and like they've got this one thing
Mm-hmm.
that this is when I realized, yeah, okay, this is the right job for me, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because if let's say you're listening in the car or on
Mm-hmm.
your device and the song comes on, you like it, you want to add it to your like list
Mm-hmm.
or playlist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hit the little plus button. Couldn't be easier thing in the world. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it's been happening to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as the song that you liked ends
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you put it on a playlist, it
Mm-hmm.
plays it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why would I want to hear it a second time? I
Mm-hmm.
just want to remember for
Mm-hmm.
later, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that annoyance that I found in myself getting, like, that's how I get now with everything.
Yeah.
Like, why did
Correct.
it take 3 clicks? Why did it take a half? Why do I have to go over here to get something over there, right?
Yeah.
So it's a super useful skill. And that's a question I've been asking a lot. Are you
Correct.
okay with XYZ? Now, the engineers will push back. Like we just recently went through a situation where I wanted to see change history next to a field.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're not capturing it like that. We're really going to capture it as a log for the whole page for whatever
Yeah.
reason, right? But that's not a great experience, right?
Yeah.
Because now I've got to fish through the log and be like, oh, that's this, not that.
Yeah.
It becomes harder. But,
Yeah.
what's that?
And
Like
that's how
said,
you could take that and put this in the interview context is the and when I interview product managers, one of my favorite questions would be, what's your favorite product you've ever used?
I just told you mine.
Most of them would come up with, yeah, you told me, that's why I'm giving this.
Yeah, I like
What
it.
is that one feature that you love about it the most? Why do you love it so much? And I get them to start obsessing about that. So they get deeper and deeper and deeper. Right? And tell me something that you didn't like about that product. So this is just building context. Now I say, take that same thing and tell me what have you built in your last 25 years that you felt so proud of as much as that feature that you love the most. So that way, just to give them, can they go in deep and associate that same passion and same feeling of things that they were the customer to what they built?
Yeah, one of my favorite, you just tapped onto something that I really want to pull on. One of my favorite random questions I got when I was interviewing at Bridgewater early on, one of the investment associates, I was coming in for more of a technology role, but this was, one of the investment folks, because we work very, very closely together, asked me, what are you passionate about? Just asked it, open-ended, no direction, nothing. And I was like, oh, that's a great question. Let me think for a moment, which is, I love when candidates do that, right? When candidate literally says, give me a moment to think about it. I'm like, yeah, take as much time as you need. I want be thoughtful, right? That means you're actually present and you're here. So that's something I found to be helpful. But that was one of my favorite questions I was asked because it really let me be free. Like it wasn't about a tech answer. Like I think I did qualify it, like in work or in life or in whatever you're passionate about. And it was great because immediately I connected with the interviewer. And even though it wasn't something he was passionate about, he was able to draw my energy out. And then I was like animated and my hands are moving. That's the Italian thing, right? And it worked out. It worked out really well. I walked out of there going, that went, I know that one went well. So that was good. Yeah, no, that's terrific. I think it's hard to underscore the value of passion in a candidate, if you would help me understand your take on artificial intelligence in this space. I know we could go two different directions, like AI and engineering is sort of like how do we use the tool. I'm actually kind of interested in both, but I'm also interested in the AI in the interviewing process and and the talent search and candidacy and the like. Love your thoughts on
Correct.
it,
Correct.
both or either.
Yeah, I have a hypothesis, so I have two kids. One of them is a junior in college in Purdue,
Okay.
and my younger son is a junior in high school, right? So my older kid would be in the workforce technically by 2027,
Okay.
summer of 27, and my younger one would be in the workforce by summer of 2031,
Okay.
right? One of the questions I ask myself is how is the workforce population going to look like in 2030 and beyond, right? And I look at my career when I got out of college, how was I assessed and evaluated, and what kind of jobs existed, how these jobs and like some of the things I started doing, those technologies and those things don't even exist anymore,
It's wild, isn't it?
right?
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
But it took
I'm just
about 15, 10, 20 years for them to die. But things are dying much faster now,
yes.
right? So,
Yes.
and so I do have a hypothesis. Some of it I've read, some of it I formed on my own. And I may be right, I may be wrong, but maybe 5 years from now, we should touch bases on this again.
Yeah, I'd love
I
that.
believe,
Absolutely.
I, yeah, I believe the role of a software engineer, as is currently defined, a product manager, and a data analyst, and to some extent, even a UX designer, is going to merge into one role. Okay, so today
One more
you
time. Sorry. So you said software engineer,
soft product
product
manager,
manager, analyst, data analyst, and UX. Okay.
yeah, UX, right?
All
The
kind of
program
combined into
manager
one.
as a skill, as a role itself has started to the what the program manager role was a project manager back in the days,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
project manager for all practical reasons is almost dead. You have program
Hmm.
managers, which is it's not just one project, it's
Yeah.
multiple
It's a
projects, it's a
portfolio.
larger
Yeah.
program, right? And you will continue to have that in some shape or form, right? Because you need ways to because that's where all the human skills get introduced, right?
100%.
And lots of behavior. There are operational skills and human skills that get put together. A good program manager is having both of those skills. But I'll get to the program manager in a bit. But
Sure.
in terms of product, software engineering, product analytics, maybe even a little bit of UX, this is a skill set that in the future you would have to have all four of them and not just one or the other, right? So for example, if you're an engineer who just knows how to code, it's not good enough.
Hmm.
You're a product manager who just can write some requirements and think some ideas, is still not good enough. You're somebody who can do data analytics, not good enough,
Interesting.
right? You've got to have all these three skills, at a minimum these three, if not even the UX design, but at a minimum these
Sure.
three skills, because the UX and know how to acquire or get to the outcome using AI for these three skills.
Mm.
So you're not the expert, but you know how to be the expert.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. I do. I think the um from my limited personal experience, I've just been doing some vibe coding because it's easy and it's fun,
Yeah,
and I want to learn how to
yeah,
use it. And we're making my company, we're making a much bigger push right into that
yeah,
space for
yeah,
obvious reasons.
yeah,
But I will say, as I frame what work I did,
yeah,
right? So one of the things I'm doing for this podcast
yeah,
is creating a website
yeah,
where you can search for previous,
yeah,
episodes and by tags and like looking at data and the like. And I'm really leveraging. I haven't written code in years, and I'm asked not to.
yeah,
My talent is not. That's not where my talents lie. I'm okay with that. But I know the outcome I want, and I also know what I want it to feel like when I go to look for a thing, right? So I'm going to start with that, and it's been fun. Honestly,
yeah,
it's been a lot of fun because
Yeah.
I'm marrying those things together. Like I'm saying, I want this
Correct.
to look like this. I want it to act like this. I want this behavior, right? But at the same time, I want it to be able to be easy to use and a bit fun and search for things and make recommendations. So yeah, it's. I think you're right. I think that
In fact,
combination.
yeah, if you're interviewing for a junior product manager role and that person has not done vibe coding, I would not even start the interview,
Interesting. Interesting.
right? Because
That's a
that's because that's not enough. Like you're relying on somebody else to do stuff. In today's world, a basic concept can be realized in a couple of hours if you have an idea of what you
true.
want to do, right? And put
It's
together,
true.
and you can demo it and show it and make it more real. And if you haven't done that, you're not ready.
You're not
So
ready. Yeah.
that's
No, I think.
that's
Yeah.
that's one of the things on how to get ready, to
Interesting.
actually be eligible for a
Yeah.
job.
It's going to change. You're right. I think it's very, I like you drawing the analogy to project management, right? The way nobody lists themselves unless you're super junior, right? Your first few years, out of school. I did a project management gig right, where you go, okay, like if you call yourself a program manager with a few years of experience, like okay, what else did you do besides the one project? Fine, but I do think you're right. It's the expectation is to not just one thing. It's multiple, a portfolio or a collection of
Yeah.
work or whatnot. Interesting.
Yeah. See, the whole
Yeah.
concept of even a scrum master has kind of died. It came. They're all phases and eras where you had a project manager
Yeah.
and a scrum master and agile coach. There are still some companies that have it, but for most practical reasons, they're dead, right?
Yeah. It's
You
interesting. Yeah.
you don't have this concept of QA engineer and production engineer and or development engineer. That did exist. That's gone. So over time, we've shown in the last 2 to 3 decades where software engineering and software products have existed, we've had these roles, and some roles continue to exist. Some roles come in and merge with a few others, and some have died. And that's what is going to happen, but at much rapid pace. We don't have to wait 2 decades before this happens. This will happen, I would say, in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm
The
trying to
pace
think,
of
how do I
change.
get my kid ready when he gets
Yeah.
his first job? Right? And
Yeah.
saying, hey, just don't learn how to code. You need to build an app, build something that's meaningful.
Try something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have an argument, not a counter argument, but I want your thoughts on it. I'd like your thoughts on this. My son and I, who's a bit older than yours, was we were talking about this literally last night. So he's in banking, and he does a lot of like looking at credit agreements, right? And when he first started only 5 years ago, the credit agreement was a doc, right? And you go through it, and you pour over it, and you really deeply understand the contents of the credit agreement, and you'd have a small number of these to work on, right? But now the expectation, forgetting the technology for just a second, the expectation is you could do more than just one, right? You do three or four at a time. Partly because his brain has evolved over the years with experience and learning how to do them and be more efficient and all of that. But the expectation has increased as well. So he's getting more efficient and more effective at it. So when I said, well, you can very easily throw that into a notebook LM and have, and get the summary, get the synthesis of that. And he said, I really don't like that idea, right? I'm really opposed to that because you're not getting that skill of learning the basics, right? And so I said, okay, now I'm going to go back into your past. I want to say, I don't know when do you learn long division? 5th grade, 3rd grade? I don't know when they're like, I don't know, but like you hated it because you had to carry this and to carry that. Why do I need to do that when I have a calculator? And I would always say to him and my daughter as well,
Yes.
because you need to learn how to do the thing. So do you
Yes.
think people who jump right to AI without learning the blocking and tackling or the basics, the long division, do you see that as a potential risk for really becoming
No,
great at your job?
not at all, actually. In fact, there may be some jobs that will require that level of depth and analysis and knowledge to have acquired in that right sequence. I'm not saying that there won't be jobs that way, but for most jobs, it's not about how much you know, but it's knowing how to acquire knowledge becomes more important than the knowledge itself.
I fundamentally agree with that statement.
Yes.
I do, right?
And
Are you a lifelong learner? Are you continually trying to learn?
Just think of life before Google, right? How did you have to acquire stuff? You would go into a library, pick a book that's written by somebody that's revisioned over 3 decades, and then you will look up something and say, okay, let me come back and try and apply it, or let me write the program for it. How would this work, that work, right? Just because you had Google come up, would you say I won't go to a library? You didn't say I have to go to a library. That is the way you study. It changed the way you searched for information.
That's true. That's very
It
true.
changed the way you actually searched, got, and learned. And AI is doing something very similar. It's basically changing the way how you're acquiring that knowledge, right? And how do you determine, is this right versus is this better,
Sure.
right?
I see.
And
So
now,
your
like I said,
argument.
it may not be applicable to all jobs, but a vast majority of jobs will benefit from this.
Yes.
And that is what is going to change.
I see. So it's not so much replacing long division with a calculator. Sure, right? It's faster, it's more effective, but you're using the calculator better. You're
Yeah.
using it in a way that's changing how you're
The
solving
outcome,
the
the
problem.
outcome is more precise. You will not make a mistake when you start using a calculator versus just hand math, right? The outcome is exact. It's going to be precise. It's not going to.
Right.
It's not. And can you do it fast? And can you continue doing it faster? Right?
Yeah, not without a calculator, not with long division and a calculator. Not this guy. I'm not nearly as fast. That's great. No, thank you for that. Yeah, that's fantastic. Appreciate your time. I would like to ask one or two last questions. I'd love to understand your transition from PayPal to KindKart and an opportunity to help us understand what that is. And moving from corporate America to philanthropy is an incredibly honorable and generous thing to do with your time, right? So I'd love to understand that story and tell us about KindKart as well.
Yeah, so I usually say this is a function of midlife crisis. You get into your 40s and you start to question what's the purpose of what you do, going to work every day, and who you work for, what you do. And I'd say partly that's true for me, but largely, I'd say I did start feeling some sort of a gap between the work I do at work and what really gives me the joy of what I'm looking forward in life. And I found that I loved my job at PayPal. I loved all the challenges. I loved what we were doing and building and transforming. And I'm the kind of person where my biggest fear is actually complacency. If I'm just doing what I did last year, I would be worried. And unfortunately for me, between eBay and PayPal, almost every single year, I was given a more challenging problem, a more difficult problem, whether it's technical, it's functional, it's people, all the above, mix it up and put it together. And that's the kind of personality I am. The harder the problem, the more I enjoy what I do, right? But I started questioning the purpose of what I am doing. And I felt there was some emptiness to it. And I had decided to leave PayPal in 2019. Sri convinced me to do another stint at PayPal and actually helped me. And he and I agreed that 2022 may be a good day for me to transition from a corporate world to the non-profit world. And then COVID happened. And then the work that my dad did during COVID in India made this very clear in my head that this is the time for me to actually make that transition. Right? He's largely the inspiration behind KindKart, even the work that we're doing is. And I realized actually there's always a fear. There is when you're stepping away from a templated world, which is what we call as the 9 to 5 job. You go in, technically not 9 to 5, but we all say it's 9 to 5 job.
Yeah,
but it's
we lie
very
to ourselves.
templated.
Yes.
It's very templated because it says your work days are from Monday through Friday. Your work hours are from 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 or whatever that is. And, you have meetings throughout the day, right? And then lunch is usually from 12 to 1. So it's very templated to a non-templated world where next day you don't know what you're going to be doing. You don't know, do you have enough money? You don't have enough money. Are you going to get bored? Are you going to watch Netflix or are you actually going to do something, right? So, but what was clear was I needed a purpose, right? And the purpose is what my dad actually gave me through the work that he was doing to these migrant workers who were stuck in India during the during the time we had COVID. And he was basically distributing grocery kits. I used to send him money, and I had raised some money on LinkedIn. I sent it to him, and he would purchase grocery kits from grocers and have it arranged in a way that these migrant workers, people without, these are daily wage laborers who are stuck during COVID, didn't have a way to earn income, so couldn't feed their family, to see if they can be fed during this, during the first phase of COVID.
Sure.
And I realized about a year later in 2021, and when I went to visit him and I see the work that he's done on the ground, I realized the impact of the work he's done. And I felt like actually this is somewhat closer to me because of the skills that I have between eBay and PayPal. It's the function of commerce and payments. And can I actually automate the work that he's doing so that instead of helping 50 people or 1,000 people that he went about doing, can we actually do this for millions of people through software, through technology, right? And so that way I felt like there's a strong purpose and a strong connect between what I already know and the purpose, that it can be of use for. So I'd say also I got lucky. I mean, you need an inspiration, you need a purpose. And then fortunately for me, the timing was right in terms of India being a marketplace, India being a geography where the payments ecosystem is extremely advanced, right? Okay. As an example, I can pay your electricity bill online in India. I can pay all I need is a QR code. In the US, I cannot pay your electricity bill. You have to pay it yourself. You can pay it online, but you still have to pay it yourself. I can pay it on your behalf.
There's the authentication, and I forgot my password and all that stuff. Yeah.
The payment ecosystem is extremely mature in India. Had I tried to take the same concept and idea and implement it 10 years ago, I would have probably failed. So the timing was right. There was inspiration. There was a good path to what the purpose is. And then some of the skills that I've already have. If I didn't have an eBay and a PayPal experience, I probably would not have really figured out how to do this. If I didn't have my executive experience of, how to start from 0 and go to 10, how do you put things together, right? I would not have it would have taken me longer to figure this out. But I think, of course, it's still a very, very complex problem. It's being an entrepreneur, a startup in the nonprofit world, all combinations for complexity.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I'm enjoying. So that is, that has been the transition.
That's fantastic. And you're helping a lot of people, right? So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a very simple concept, actually. And in these days, in the world of Instacart and DoorDash, it's easier for me to explain what I do because all that we are actually an Instacart for charities. That is what KindKart is. So instead of you adding items into your cart and buying it for yourself, charitable organizations add items that they want every month in their cart. And when you come to donate, you just, the software automatically picks the items based on the amount you want to donate. So you as a donor know what your money is, where your money is going when you donate.
Which is a big part, right? That to understand that the funds are actually being spent on what you're intending to is what I think that's when people are afraid to donate. It's like, well, correct. How do I know how much are they actually giving to the charity and how much is actually going to get put to use? And am I just paying for the so-and-so's marketing budget, right? Yeah,
correct.
That's fantastic. Well, it sounds wonderful, and I'll recommend everyone I'll put the link out in the site that everyone should explore KindKart. Last question, if I may. Is there any particular advice you would give to your younger self? It could be any point in your career from all the way back to whatever. Like, what would be if you had the chance to give yourself some advice as a younger person?
There are so many. I can think of. It
doesn't have to just be one then. Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, no, there are many. I've, in my last 25 years of a professional experience, by nature and by personality, I am competitive, right? And being competitive is not wrong. Actually, it's a good thing because that's how you do. You try and do better, right?
Always.
But back in the days, the advice I would have given myself is be competitive with yourself, not with
Okay.
others. And the difference is that you want to get better than yourself, not better than others. It took me many years in my career to learn that, right? And the easy distinction and the differentiation between this is how you show up, right? When you are competitive amongst others, you tend to become intimidating, right? Why does somebody say you're intimidating? Because it's clear, you show it out, right? Versus when you're competitive within yourself, you first try and find a fault in yourself before you find a fault in somebody else's idea, right? And then say, okay, what can I do to get better at it? How can I differentiate myself better, right, than the rest of the competition? Because something that you have to change, not right. And so that would be one advice I'd give myself. I think I would also say that over the time, you model yourself based on the people around you. It's always the case. Same with your children. Your children model themselves by the parents. We play such an important role in being that role model for them. So consciously and subconsciously, sometimes you're picking up skills from the people around you.
Sure.
And I'd say, there have been many times I feel like, I could have been a difficult person to work with early on in my career.
Okay.
Right. I know what I knew. I knew where I stood in the the corporate world. I know I have certain skills that many others don't have, but I did not make an attempt to make myself less intimidating.
I see.
Right. When I joined PayPal, and over time I realized, okay, this is what differentiates me from, whereas you don't want to come across as being intimidating. You don't get anything out of it, right? And you don't do it on purpose. Nobody wants to be intimidating, right? But those behaviors show up based on how you think about it yourself, right? You don't have to be cocky to get something out. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be known. He's this because because what you're doing is when you're intimidating, you're shutting people off. You're shutting ideas out. You are right, because you're the loudest voice. You are, of course, you got to where you got to because you know your stuff.
Sure.
Doesn't mean
you might be missing out on that opportunity for that idea that person who shut down, you may not get that idea, that suggestion. Maybe it wouldn't have been yours, right? But that's one of the benefits of a diverse team, right? Is lots of different places for ideas, but if they're unwilling to share, thank you for opening up about that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I'll ask a question for yourself based on this. Who do you think would be the most intimidated? Would it be your team? Would it be your peers? Would it be your managers? If you were in that position, right, who do you think would be the most intimidated about you?
So it's my peers,
your team, people,
my team,
yeah,
my peers, my level, or my managers.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I would probably have to say can I throw one more in there? And it's my customers.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say in that chain, I've been very lucky where it's been, it's generally within the orgs that I've worked in.
Mm-hmm.
Those orgs have been very lucky to have that sort of almost, not camaraderie is the wrong word, but more of compassion, maybe of people working together, right? Where the difficulties often came from, that aggressiveness or obnoxious is the wrong word. Sorry. To where it was that intimidation would often come from the outside, right? Where you've got a customer that is expecting something unreasonable or is asking for something that, they're like, I'm the most important customer. You should pay attention to me more than those others, right? I think that would be where it come from. And that's where, depending on how management would respond, right? We've got to give it to them because they're the loudest or they're the squeakiest wheel or they're going to get me fired, so that's been my experience. Thank you for the question. I don't get enough. Now that I think about it, I don't know that I get enough questions on this podcast. I want more questions. Sriji, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I genuinely appreciate you. This was a really great conversation. I'm hoping our audience gets as much out of this as I did. So thank you for that on a personal level. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you for that opportunity as well. I really enjoyed the way you prepped and you showed up on this conversation and all the questions you asked me. So thank you again.
It's my pleasure.